would I be the asshole if I visited my parents after my wife gives birth? My wife, Sarah, and I, both early mid-30s, are expecting twins in early March. First and only kids for both of us. We had to go through IVF due to fertility struggles. Sarah is scheduled for a C-section due to this being a difficult pregnancy and other complications that make her high risk. Luckily, her parents are only a few hours drive away and willing to come whenever needed. My parents live in another country, and I see them usually once a year to every year and a half. They are aware of when Sarah is scheduled to have her C-section. Things have been going on they don't know how to handle, and they want me there to help out. My parents don't have a lot of money, but they went ahead and booked me a non-refundable plane ticket to come help them and visit for 6 weeks. The flight date is 5 days after Sarah's scheduled C-section. I've asked Sarah to look into rescheduling her surgery a few weeks earlier if possible, but she's refused, saying she's gotten herself mentally prepared for that particular date. And unless there's some sort of emergency with the twins, her OB is not going to approve pushing it up a few weeks. I told her that it would give me more time to help her directly after birth, before I leave for my parents. Sarah thinks I'm crazy for even considering going for that long, or at all, while we have 2 newborns at home and she's recovering from surgery and we're getting adjusted to being new parents. If I had the money to spare, I'd hire someone to stay with Sarah while I'm gone. I gently reminded Sarah that I rarely see my family, and if they're asking and paying for me to fly there, it must be something serious that requires my presence. At parents' request, I did not tell her the nature of the issues they need help with. Plus, Sarah's own parents are only 2.5 hours drive away. And I'm confident they'll drop whatever they're doing to come help should she need it. Her mom works remotely and could even stay over some nights to help out with the twins. Sarah again called me crazy and ended up telling her parents what I suggested. They both called me lecturing and fussing about abandoning Sarah when she needs me the most. I ended up venting to my younger brother, who is also going to be flying out to our parents, but for a shorter time. He is not married and child-free. And he says Sarah is way out of line and she'll be fine if I go. She's simply reacting in this way due to hormones. To be honest, I really want to go, and my parents would lose several $1,000s if I refused. And I'd have to buy a ticket for myself later if I didn't go then. Would I be the asshole if I went?
Yeah. This is a little complicated, but I'll try to explain as best as possible. My 34 male, twin sister 34 female, Layla, has been in a wonderful relationship with her wife, 34 female Effie, for about 8 years. Shortly after they got married, they both very much wanted to start a family. After discussing their options, they came to a decision that a great way for them to conceive a child that's biologically both of theirs would be through IVF, using my sperm and Effie's eggs, with Effie carrying the baby. I was completely okay with that and more than happy to help them out. My own wife and I don't have or want kids personally, so there wasn't any subsidiary family drama to consider there, and with Lila being my twin, it just made sense. They literally could not get any closer to a traditional pregnancy as a couple. It was a success, and Lila and Effie now have a beautiful 3-year-old daughter, who unsurprisingly looks just like Lila. Everyone is thrilled about her. A few months ago, they decided they were ready to expand their family. They'd wanted 2 kids from the beginning, and they'd like the sibling to be fully biological. So Lila contacted me about donating sperm again, and of course I agreed. That is, until I found out that Effie can no longer safely carry a baby to term. Apparently, they've known about this since encountering complications during the first pregnancy. So instead, my sister would be the one carrying the baby, a baby that's technically mine. I immediately told her no. I'm not comfortable with that. I understand that her DNA would not be mixing with mine in any way, but something about it seems really off to me. I do not want to sit across from my pregnant sister at Christmas dinner knowing that I put the baby inside of her. I don't want awkward situations like their kid exclaiming, "My mommy gave birth to me and my daddy is her brother." Lila is extremely upset, saying that I'm being selfish and close-minded and juvenile. Told me that I'm ruining what would be their perfect family and robbing their daughter of a full-blood sibling. There's absolutely no way they can afford the compensation fees and other costs of gestational carrier. Plus, they're now attached to the idea of them each having carried one sibling. So the only other option would be using a different sperm donor. In a way, I can absolutely see her side of things. I realize that I sort of am being juvenile. The only thing standing in the way of their dream is that I just can't shake the ewy incest vibes. Is it really such a selfish move that I can't just put my feelings aside and let them complete their family? For me, it's simply an uncomfortable thought, and for them, it's just a decision that affects their whole family and future. Just need some advice, I guess.
Am I wrong for refusing to help save my little sister's life? Story time. So my father married his wife when I was 12. And this was like 4 years after my mum passed away. So my dad's new wife had a daughter who was 3 at the time. And we will call her Amy. Now, when Amy was 4, she was diagnosed with a really rare illness which is quite difficult to treat. And her medical bills were starting to get really, really expensive. And there was only one thing that we could think to sell that would provide enough money to get her treatment. And my mum had left me her engagement ring in her will, so it was mine. Whoa. So when my dad came to me and asked me about it, I was like, absolutely not. This is one of the only things I have left from my mum. And she also specifically left it to me. So I very blatantly told my dad that if he sold that ring, I would never speak to him ever again. Because what do you mean you're going to sell one of the only things I have left of my mum? So even after making it exceptionally clear I would honestly never speak to him ever again, he went and sold it. Great move, Steve. So I stayed true to my word and I never spoke to my dad for a long, long time. Amy was cured of this illness and she's been happy and healthy for years. But really sadly, we recently found out that her illness has come back. And they're now saying that they're going to have to use my university fund to pay for this round of treatment. So my dad rang me the other day. He started off by saying, I want to apologise, which is never a good way to start a conversation. And he then proceeds to tell me that he has used my university fund to pay for Amy's treatment. So we then got into a massive argument and his wife turned around to me and was like, it's not about you, it's about saving your sister's life.
The first time ever that my boyfriend stayed the night with me, I shit the bed. Let's talk about it. To set the scene, it's 2017 and I've just finished my freshman year of college at UT Knoxville. It's right at the end of the semester and I've just broken up with my high school boyfriend who we came to college together and everything. Nothing dramatic, it just didn't work out. Long story short, there was this guy who was in one of my classes all of spring semester who I definitely talked to my roommate about and thought he was cute, and he'd been kind of trying like the whole semester. Like he would ask me to go study or like what I was gonna do on the weekends, but I had a boyfriend so nothing ever really happened. So it's right at the end of the semester and exams are happening and Ovi, we'll just call him Ovi because that's his name. Ovi asked our class group me if we wanted to study together for the final. Only a few of us did and it ended up being just me and him for the majority of the night and nothing happened. We just went to like Waffle House, but we really hit it off and I was like, all right, this is the guy. I just know. So cut to a couple weeks later, we've been texting, we've been talking, like the suspense is kind of starting to build up, but I'm like, how are we going to stay like together? Neither of us have an apartment. Essentially, he was living in a dorm. He had to move back in with his parents for the summer and he was moving into an apartment in the fall. And I'm like literally living with my grandparents. So nothing is going to happen there. Thankfully, I have a best friend who is attending the University of Memphis and she has a house. Shout out to Maddie. She was like, listen, if you and this guy want to come stay here for the weekend, you are more than welcome. I just need somebody to watch my cat. She just adopted this little kitten. It had a bunch of health issues. She got it from like some shady person. She basically rescued it. I'm like, yeah, we will take care of the kitten and stay in the house. It's a win-win. So cut to that weekend. I'm getting everything ready in the house and Ovi drives like 6 hours from East Tennessee to Memphis to come see me. So green flag number 1. So he gets there. The first day is great. The spark is there, chemistry's there, everything is going amazing. It comes time to eat dinner and he's visiting Memphis for like the first time, so of course he wants to get barbecue. I at the time was not a fan and I have since come to learn the error of my ways, but I didn't want to get barbecue. I really wanted pizza and there's a Little Caesars that's like right down the street from where this house is. So I get pizza, he gets that, we take it back to the house and eat it there. We eat, we're having a good night. I start to not feel like great, but nothing major, and then we go to bed. Also, let me just preface, this is not one of those like bougie college houses that people post on these apps. It's kind of the trenches and it's fine. Like I'm grateful for it. But I say that to say there's not great like heating and cooling in this place and it's June. It's hot. It's cut to like 3 a.m. I wake up in the middle of the night. It's hot as hell around me and I feel horrible. My stomach is in shambles and I know I need to throw up. And so I'm like, I know I have food poisoning. So I get up to go to the bathroom and that's when I realize I look around me in the bed, and there is, you know. When I tell you, I think my whole life flashed before my eyes. Like, this is not, I didn't even have nightmares. This is not even my worst nightmare. This is beyond anything that I ever even thought was possible to happen to me. So I look over at this man who I really like, and he's still asleep, but I'm like, it's over. Like, this is it. There's no recovering from this. I know that. All of that has to get pushed to the side because I have to go to the bathroom. I've never been so sick in my life, and I was in there for, I don't know, an hour, and he still hasn't woken up. I shower, obviously. I do my best to, like, pull myself together, and he's still not awake. And I'm like, well, he's gonna end it with me, and I feel like shit. So I need to go I'm in self-preservation mode. I need to go get some medicine. Thank God this happened in 2017 because this is the era where we still had 24/7 Walmarts and I could drive at 3 a.m. and go get everything I needed. So anyways, I get everything I need. I'm still really sick, by the way, but I get back home and I think every bit of adrenaline in my body is working and is like, you have to push through, you have to handle this. So I go back in the bedroom and I'm like, all right, what's the strategy? What are we gonna do? Like, what am I gonna say? What am I gonna say? Like, wake him up and be like, hey, I'm so sorry, but... And then I see that little dog. I'm not proud of this, but there was no other choice. Like I said, he was rescued. He'd been having some tummy issues while we were taking care of him. And I looked at him and I made a decision. Picked that little dog up and I put him in the bed in the middle where the scene has happened. I get back in the bed, pretend to wake up groggily and go and wake him up. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, but I think Roscoe got sick while we were asleep. And I think this is the moment that I knew that he was the one because he, after being woken up in the middle of the night, looks around, sees what has happened, looks at the little dog, and he's like, oh no, is he okay? Immediately gets up and starts stripping the bed and taking care of all of that, even though I was like, no, really, you don't need to do that. He helps me give the dog a bath and everything and literally just laughs it off like it's no big deal. We just went about the rest of the weekend like nothing happened, even though I felt horrible. So like, where is my Oscar? Anyways, we are still together and I kept this secret for over 5 years and I just told him a few months ago. So let me know if you would like to know what his reaction was to me finally telling him the truth.
I am in a mixed faith marriage. Let's talk about it. My husband is Mormon or LDS, and I am not. That isn't entirely true. I was raised LDS. I grew up in the church in a very strong LDS family. Pretty much my whole life, my dad has been a bishop, a stake president, a mission president. I went to seminary all through high school. I also served an LDS mission in Kobe, Japan. I only served my mission for 7 months before experiencing some health issues. Getting sent home from my mission was honestly a very traumatic experience. The time when I came home, it was very much not normalized to ever come home early from your mission. So anyways, when I got home from my mission, I pretty much immediately started rebelling. I tried alcohol for the first time. I stopped going to church. I stopped wearing my garments pretty much immediately. I was just thriving in college, living my best college life. I never really went back to church, but I also didn't have an issue with it. In other words, my reasons for not going to church were not very deep. It was mostly just because I didn't want to. Fast forward a couple years and I meet my now husband. I pretty much saw him and I thought he's super cute, but he looks super Mormon. So obviously he wouldn't like a party girl like me. But we were going on a camping trip together through the school, and so I figured, you know what, it's 3 days, let's just have some fun. I'm gonna flirt with him. Basically, we're inseparable from the second that we met on that trip, and pretty quickly we started talking about where I was at, my past, all those things, and truly he just didn't seem to care. So anyways, we date, we're obsessed with each other, we go to church sometimes on Sundays, just a sacrament meeting. I did stop drinking at that time, but it was not because he asked me to or gave me an ultimatum. It was simply because I wasn't hanging out with my friends as much. But we definitely weren't your typical Mormon couple. We didn't pray together, we didn't read our scriptures together, and honestly that was how it was the entire time that we dated and while we were engaged. When it came time to get married though, we obviously had to have that conversation about the temple, and I did not want to get married in the temple. In fact, I couldn't get married in the temple. And for Easton, that is something that he had always wanted for his life, but he also wanted to respect where I was at, and he knew that he wanted to marry me, so it put us in a very complicated place. He was the last to get married out of all of his siblings, and they had all gotten married in the temple. And if you've grown up Mormon, you know that pretty much getting married in the temple is like the end goal, and this is something that he had always wanted for his life, and so I understood where he was coming from. And then of course COVID happened and they closed all the temples. That solved the problem for us pretty much right away, and I think that we were both pretty relieved. I'm doing another coat of mascara. So we got married in a random backyard, got pregnant a few months later, and after I gave birth to my baby, when churches started opening back up, was when shit hit the fan for me. I'm honestly not sure what started it, but I decided to do some deep diving on the church, and I'm not gonna go into that right now because that is just a very deep, intense topic, and it put me into one of the worst depressions of my entire life. But basically, I knew that I could no longer be a part of the church, and I had this little baby that I knew that I didn't want to raise in that culture. And again, my reasons for that are personal. I'm not going to share that on here right now. And that basically put Easton and I in a very big predicament because I wanted to talk about these things that I was feeling, these things that I was learning that were very intensely affecting me. And to put it simply, he didn't want to talk about it, which I understand why he didn't want to talk about it, but it put our marriage through the ringer. However, it's been 3 years since we went through that, and it was so intense, so difficult. I thought for sure that our marriage was over. For about a year, things were really rocky. We were trying to navigate how to have these conversations, how to be there for each other, how to respect each other's boundaries, but we stuck it out, and I'm really grateful that we did. We're in a much better place. Obviously, I'm done getting ready. I didn't time that very well with this story because I just had to include a lot of details. So I'll probably make a video later this week about how we navigate mixed faith marriage world. It's just a really intense personal topic, and I think when we first entered the mixed faith marriage world, it seemed too overwhelming because we knew nobody in our situation. It seemed impossible, like our marriage was doomed to fail. And I hope by sharing a little bit about our story that you can know that if you're in a similar situation, that it doesn't have to be over. You can make it work. It just takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of patience.
All right, so where we left off, I had just had my baby. I was about 3 months postpartum when I really started doing some research and discovering some things that really rocked my world. I'm not going to go into the specific resources and things that I listened to, read, etc. that made me come to the conclusions that I did. My page is not an ex-Mormon page. It's not about that kind of stuff. So if you're really curious, you can just go do the research on your own. Put me into a really dark, deep depression because I felt like my whole life had been a lie. Also felt like the closest people in my life would not be there for me as I was going through this because the people closest to me were active LDS people. When my husband finally picked up on the fact that I was not okay, I was crying a lot. He was coming home from work and he could tell that I was upset. Finally, after a couple weeks, I mustered up the courage to talk to him about it. And to be fully transparent, it did not go very well. After a 3-hour long, tear-filled, heavy conversation, we started talking about things like, oh, maybe this won't work, because we knew not one person in our situation. It was a very, very, very sad time in our marriage. We decided that before we end things, we would try to give it some time, start going to couples therapy, which was definitely a good thing for me because I needed to be going to therapy as I was transitioning out of the church. It was just way too heavy of a situation for me to be going through alone. And to tell the short version of the story, after about 6 months of therapy, we really decided that we wanted to be together as a family. I loved who Easton was. He loved who I was. Me leaving the church really did not change that. However, some things did need to change in order to make this marriage work. And in this video, I'm not going to talk about specific things that he believes in, he doesn't believe in, that I believe in, I don't believe in, mainly because that stuff is just really personal and my husband is not on social media and I don't want to exploit what he believes in telling our story. Keep in mind that before we got married, I was very much a cafeteria Mormon is what they call it, where I really did not believe a lot of the things that the church teaches politically, and Easton knew all of that, and on those really big issues we agreed. Our values had pretty much always lined up, and I feel like that's really important for this story because if they didn't, then I'm sure all of this would be a different outcome. So we already knew that morally we had stayed the same. It wasn't like I was leaving the church and I was gonna go out clubbing with my friends every weekend. I was still a mom. That was my priority, and he knew that. He knew how much I love my son. He knew how much I love him. If we could stay true to ourselves, we really wanted to make our marriage work and stay together as a family unit. And our therapist basically told us, you will be able to have a successful marriage as long as you continue to respect each other. And frankly, it was easier for my husband to respect where I was at than it was for me to respect where he was at that time. Because I was angry, I was hurt, I had been going through a lot as I was deconstructing the church, whereas he wasn't really angry, he was just confused. It took quite a while for me to not be as angry anymore and to fully accept, I'm not going to change him. And really, at the end of the day, I don't want to change my husband. His story and his testimony is very personal to him, but I know him very, very well, and I know why he believes in the church and why it's important for him to stay active. And I have fully learned to accept that, and I actually love that the church does that for him. Once I understood that, and once I let go of the anger and the frustration, even though all of my feelings were really, really valid, it was pretty easy to make our marriage work. The hard part, frankly, has definitely been from other people. He's told me before that people in the word will say things like, just keep coming, she'll come back. Things that frankly are extremely inappropriate. And luckily, my husband tells them that we're on the same page about that. But it's not just people telling him things, it's also people telling me things like, oh, hopefully he sees the light soon. To which I say, you know, we're all on our own journey. To put pressure on someone is not okay. And I'm someone who personally believes that diversity and our differences make us stronger. And I really think that as we raise our kids, we're going to show them that. And I'm honestly really proud of that. I'm happy that my kids get to grow up in a mixed faith marriage household. I think that at the end of the day, it will make them more open-minded people and hopefully help them have more autonomy on the choices that they decide to make.
Let's talk about how I accidentally became a nurse. So basically, I showed up on test day thinking it was a test to get into the cosmetology program. It was a test about like reading, writing, and things like that, just to make sure that you could actually like perform well in school. The entire time I was taking the test, I literally thought I was taking the test for the cosmetology program. Since I can remember as a little girl, I've always wanted to be like something like cosmetology, like a hairstylist. I loved the idea of hair, nails, things like that. So I loved the idea of doing anything with that. So when I found out that I could do a cosmetology program while I was still in high school, I was so excited and I was like, I'm for sure doing this. My mom drove me to the testing center that day, and the test for the nursing program was going on at the same time. The test for like math, writing, and things like that. It was the same exact test, but one was cosmetology, one was nursing. I meant to get in the line for the cosmetology test, but I guess with all of my stress or whatever, I don't know, I got in the line for the nursing program test. I literally took the entire test and didn't even know it was for the nursing program because it was all the same. I knew it was going to be math and reading and writing and things like that. So how was I supposed to know that I was in the test for the nursing program? I was thinking the entire time, like, wow, there's a lot more boys in here than I thought. I didn't realize there were going to be like a lot of boys interested in like cosmetology. I mean, not that that's a bad thing, but like I was like, wow, like I didn't think there was gonna be that big of a turnout for the boys. I literally didn't even know I took the test for the nursing program until I got the results in my email on my test. Said that I had passed the test and they were wanting to know when they could schedule an interview with the nursing instructors. So I was so confused as to like why the nursing instructors wanted to interview me for the cosmetology, program. Like I didn't understand. It wasn't until that moment when I was like, oh my gosh, I think I literally just took the test for the nursing program, not the cosmetology program. I remember freaking out to my mom, like, what the heck am I gonna do? Like, do I just, like there wasn't another test for the cosmetology program until the next year. So I'm like, do I just wait a whole year and do the cosmetology program my senior year? Do I just, like, try and see how nursing goes and see if I like it? Or do I just totally just bail, quit, tell them I'm not interested anymore, and then try for cosmetology next year? I don't know how my mom convinced me to do the nursing program because, like, my entire life, I did not want to be a nurse. Like, blood, guts, gore, anything like that, I was like absolutely not. Like, I'm gonna like faint and vomit. Like, there is no chance I'm going to be a nurse. Like, that's just not for me. She told me that she already paid for the test and like would be really disappointed basically if I failed. So I was like, you know what, let me just try, see how it goes. Maybe I'll really like it. To my surprise, I actually really liked it. I ended up doing really well in it. We started at the beginning of the year with 50 and we ended with 21 or 20. So I did really well and I actually really liked it. And now it's 8 years later. I've been a nurse for 8 years and it's the best thing in the entire world.
Am I the asshole for jumping off a train before the doors closed and abandoning my pregnant wife?
Oh.
I know the title sounds crazy. I'll try to explain this as best I can. I'm 29 and my wife is 25. She's also 5 months pregnant. Recently, we decided to go on holiday together. Nothing fancy, just to the coast, which meant we had to get a train. We had maybe 3 rolling suitcases and one of those army-style backpacks. There was no issue as we boarded the train, and we sat down and put the luggage next to us. About 20 minutes into our journey, we heard an announcement over the speakers that the train was being diverted, which meant it wasn't going to stop at the station we needed anymore. As it was saying this, the train was coming to a stop at the next station. I panicked and told my wife we had to get off or we weren't going to be able to get to where we needed. I got up and started grabbing our things and rushed off the train. I couldn't believe it when I looked around and saw she hadn't gotten off. She was trying to grab our 3rd suitcase. I had the other 2 and the backpack.
Oof.
Unfortunately, it was too late, and even as I rushed to the doors, they closed. My wife looked like she wanted to kill me, and the train pulled away with her on it. I called her to tell her to get off at the next stop and I'd get the next one and meet her. But she was absolutely irate and told me the holiday was canceled and she was going home. To top it off, she told her family and mine, and they're all furious at me for abandoning a pregnant woman on a train, headed to God knows where, with a heavy suitcase. My father-in-law told me I was an idiot for what I'd done. I feel like I was in the right, but my wife and family have other ideas. So Reddit, am I the asshole?
Am I the astronaut for refusing to let my stepdaughter use my daughter's wedding dress? I'll try my best to explain the situation and make sure to present both sides. I, female 49, met my stepdaughter Zoe 2.5 years ago. I married her father less than 5 months ago. It was a small and private celebration since that's what we felt was the best thing to do, since I'm still grieving my daughter Lauren, who passed away from sepsis at the age of 26. Damn. It was so sudden. She was doing okay and was getting ready for her wedding that was supposed to happen the same month she passed away. We still don't know what went wrong. We were devastated, to say the least. Her fiancé had a hard time adapting to the new normal. I still have contact with him. We're very close. I took most of her belongings, including her wedding dress. We bought it together and she put a lot of her touches on it. We worked hard on it. Although it hurts to look at it, I make sure it's safe. Zoe's younger than Lauren. She's 23. We're not very close and distance is one of the reasons why, but we're very respectful towards each other. The issue started when Zoe visited to talk about her wedding in April. We were talking about wedding dresses and she suddenly brought up Lauren's wedding dress. I asked her what about it and she said she saw it several times and it got stuck on her mind. She asked if she could see it and I let her. She then said she'd like to wear it at her wedding. I felt uneasy. I told her I wasn't sure that was a good idea. She told me it was fine and she'd have to change a few things in it so it could fit her size and style, but this is why I had a hard time accepting it. I told her I was sorry, but I can't let her have it. She offered me money, but its sentimental value is what matters to me. She argued, saying that I was making things complicated, and it was all right since she too is my daughter. She asked if I didn't love her as much. I told her that my love for her is different, but she threw a fit, calling me unfair and unreasonable to still say no. Her dad got involved in the argument, saying he doesn't see why I'm against it. I declined to discuss it anymore, but they kept bringing it up, asking if my daughter would have wanted someone else to have the opportunity to wear this dress, since she unfortunately couldn't. This made me so mad I lashed out at both of them and kept saying no. Others said I had no right to act like that, leaving the dress in the closet when my stepdaughter can make good memories with it, but she said she's planning on changing its look.
New details are coming out about a murder of a pregnant teen and her boyfriend. On December 23rd, 2023, a young pregnant 18-year-old named Savannah Soto goes missing just 1 week before she was supposed to give birth. Her mother had heard from her the day before, but got worried when she didn't reply the next day. When she checked her apartment, she was missing. A few days later, her body is found alongside her abusive boyfriend's, Matthew Guerra, 22. He had beaten her the previous year and she had a restraining order against him. They were both found deceased in a car in the parking lot of a San Antonio apartment building. Both victims had sustained gunshot wounds and her unborn baby was also pronounced dead at the scene. Their murders garnered worldwide attention, with tens of thousands of people following their developments online and over a dozen Facebook groups determined to help find their killer. So far, 3 arrests have been made in connection to their murder: a father, son, and a stepmother. Ramon Preciado, 59, Christopher Preciado, 19, and Myra Romanos, 47. It's believed that Christopher is the one who committed the murders. He's being charged with capital murder, but his father and stepmother helped hide the bodies and are being charged for multiple felonies such as abusing a corpse, tampering with evidence, and concealing a corpse. According to an arrest warrant affidavit, Guerra had gone to Preciado's home to sell him tree on December 21st. According to Preciado, Guerra pointed a weapon at him when Preciado manipulated the weapon, resulting in Soto being shot. Moments later, Guerra pointed the weapon at him again, and Preciado told detectives that he once again manipulated the weapon, resulting in Guerra being shot. The medical examiner previously reported that Guerra had died from a wound to the head. Christopher Preciado is the sole killer in this case, but his father and stepmother helped him hide the bodies, and the weapon that was used was his stepmother's. Ramon Preciado admitted to detectives that he drove the pickup truck to the apartment complex to meet his son, which is seen on surveillance footage released by police. The critical piece of evidence that led them to the suspects was one of the victim's cell phones in the vehicle when they discovered Soto and Guerra's bodies. The phone had recently searched the address of the suspects on Google Maps, where detectives saw the Chevrolet pickup seen on the surveillance footage. Ramon Preciado's bail is set to $600,000 and Christopher's is $2 million. There are currently more pending charges for the additional death of Soto's unborn baby.